Hi, I'm Dr. Jim Zoval, a professor of chemistry at Saddleback College. You're about to watch one of my video lectures. If you like this lecture, you can get the entire Allied Health General Organic and Biochemistry course from the website address you see on the screen right now. Be sure to type the underscore between VOD and pages in this address. Enjoy the video. In Chapter 13, we're going to look at peptides, proteins, and enzymes. There's a lot of information in this sentence. Go ahead and do your fill-in if you're doing the fill-in notes, and we'll unpack this sentence as we look at the next few view graphs. In Chapter 12, we saw these things called monosaccharides. And then we saw how they bound together to make a chain of monosaccharides. We called an oligosaccharide or a polysaccharide, depending on the size of the molecule. Those new covalent bonds that were made, we called those glycosidic bonds. So we're going to look at this other class of molecules now called proteins that are made up of amino acids covalently bound together. The linear sequence of these amino acids in a protein and the nature of the side chains enable proteins to perform their functions. What are functions of proteins? Let me give you some examples. Proteins can function as enzymes. They can catalyze a chemical reaction. Proteins can function as hormones. We saw how steroid hormones worked in our last chapter. Proteins can act as storage molecules. For example, a molecule called myoglobin will store oxygen. We need a lot of oxygen where we use a lot of energy, and that's why it's in the muscles. Some proteins function for structural. For example, there are structural proteins in skin, hair, and bones. Some proteins function as protective. These things called antibodies that help us remove non-self from the body are proteins. They have a contractile function. That's how muscles work. That's how we get motion. We'll talk about how that works in this chapter. And proteins act as transport. So not only can they store things, bind to certain things and store it, they could also then move it from one part of the body to another. Hemoglobin is an example. Hemoglobin binds to oxygen and transports it in the body. The first fill-in you had the word amino acids. These are the molecules. Polymer chemists call them the residues that make up proteins. Here's the general form of an amino acid. Amino acids will have a carboxyl group, an amino group, a hydrogen, and one other group called the R group, or sometimes called the variant group. They contain a carboxyl group. Notice I've drawn it in its base form. Some of you guys probably could guess why already, but we'll talk about that. And an amino group. I've drawn it in its acid form. Again, some of you guys could probably guess why, but we'll talk about that. We're going to see 20 common amino acids that commonly occur in nature. We call these alpha amino acids because this carbon right here is called the alpha carbon. The alpha carbon is the carbon that's next to a carbonyl group. So that's the alpha carbon. And in this alpha carbon is where we have the side chain, or the R group, right there. The only difference between the various amino acids is the organic group, and it varies from amino acid to amino acid. The R group gives that particular amino acid its identity, its name. You'll notice when you're thinking about structure of amino acids, you'll see this NCC, where the C on the right will be the carboxyl group. The C in the middle will be bound to a hydrogen and the variant group, and the N will be the amino group.
So they're always written with the amino on the left and the carboxyl on the right.
That's right. There are 20 common amino acids, and I have them here and continued on the next slide. But notice in all these, there's the NCC, the carboxyl group over here, and the amino group over here. On the alpha carbon, the carbon that's next to the carbonyl group, there is some side chain that varies from one to another. Notice on the top here, glycine. On glycine, the side chain is just a hydrogen. When that side chain is a hydrogen, we call this glycine. Sometimes we abbreviate it, GLY. If that side chain is a methyl group, that's what's called alanine. So it's the side chain that gives the amino acid its identity, its name. And they all behave slightly differently because they have different side chains. I continued them on the next page in your notes.
These aren't names we have to know, right?
Question is, do we need to memorize these? What do we know about our last exam? Open book, open notes. All right? I'm surprised. You get students usually remember that. Sorry, in general, I didn't mean. But, you could bring a whole stack of books and notes, and as long as it's not something, another person or something that hooks to the internet, you could bring whatever you want in with you. Hi, I'm Dr. Jim Zoval. If you like this video and you like to get the entire course or just some of the chapters on video, I have the entire course and video lectures at the website you see on the screen right now. They're available on demand. The period of the rental is for a full year, so you'll have this video through the entire course. You could watch it as many times as you want, whenever you want. Happy studies.